I think that's how many feel about the Jets. You're never going to be sold until you actually see tangible results on the field from a coaching staff that needs to win to save their job.
Yeah, it's funny with the linebacker and defensive line coach hirings. I feel like there's some foresight there to maybe if Tomlin comes back next year and he doesn't decide to just ride off into the sunset on his TV contracts and whatnot. I think one of our first round picks could be swung for Tomlin in that type of scenario. And you're just trying to set yourself up for like the best possible scenario moving forward, which is why I don't think Mougey's going to handcuff himself to a particular quarterback. I've been saying all offseason, I really want to believe that Mougey and Glenn are separated. They're not tied to the hip, because if they are, then Mougey would be operating to save both their jobs. And that doesn't feel like what's happening. Like, it very much feels like Mougey is dictating the future of the team and Glenn is just kind of along for the ride.
So do you buy the speculation that they're not, it's not Mougey reporting the Glenn anymore, which I've been saying for months, just reading the body language, the end of the season presser, I thought was eye-opening on how each of them were acting. I don't know if Mougey is calling the shots like Mike Francesa said a source told him, and then Connor Hughes came out and said, no, that's not true. My sources tell me nothing's changed. I think there's some smoke. I just don't know if it's gotten to the point where Mougey's in front of Glenn, but I definitely think they're on way more equal footing than they were a year ago when the owner referred to Mougey as Glenn's sidekick.
Yeah, I don't think there's any official thing that's been told to the team. Like, I think Mougey maybe has been pulled aside by Woody and said, hey, operate this team as if you're here next year. You're not tied to Glenn. But I don't think structurally they'd be like, oh, no. Like, now everyone's going to report to Mougey and like he's kind of the head guy. Like, I think you just kind of don't ruffle the feathers. And it's probably a little bit more of Mougey like convincing Glenn of certain moves. Like, Geno to me doesn't strike me as like the best winning shot for Glenn to try and save his job. Like, that would have been a Kyler. It would have been a Tua. It would have been, Cousins or one of these other types of quarterbacks. But the spin zone that you've seen on Geno, I think, is appealing. I think the contract value is where Geno's value really came in. You're not investing a crazy ton of money at the quarterback position because you already got dead caps from both Fields and from Rodgers still. But I think the spin zone of, he's had 2 4,000-yard seasons in the last 4 years. I mean, I watched a lot of Raiders games last year. One of my close buddies is a Raider fan. Like, I'm hoping to buy that, but man, Geno looked awful last year. There's just no way I see him being like, bounce back to Seattle, but I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see him ball out and see this team. Like, in my ideal situation is the Jets win 8-9 games with this miraculous turnaround. Geno's the bridge for whoever the next quarterback is. And we're using the Colts #1 overall pick on our quarterback.
100%. And like the other thing is too, like the Jets don't need to be god awful to get a quarterback. There'll be more than one option in the first round a year from now. They could stick and pick with the Colts pick, their own pick. Maybe, God forbid, there's an injury to Jordan Love or Dak Prescott, and that Cowboys/Packers pick's a lot higher than we think. I think you want to find out, do you have a coach? And the answer is no. I'd rather bottom out and then get a new coaching staff and pair them up with a quarterback. I think the worst thing for the Jets is like they win 6 games and we're just not sure.
Yeah, I don't want to have a situation where I don't know about Glenn. Like, I want to make a definitive answer on him, whether he's the guy at the end of the year and I feel comfortable moving forward with him, or we are resetting at least a portion of the coaching staff. It might be a version of Reich being head coach, or, bringing someone else in like a Tomlin that retains some of the coaching staff there. So it's not a total shifting of everything in the, in the organization. But I think there's also the conversation that we're not really having a whole lot of, because everyone's kind of looking at their young rookie quarterback, the cheap rookie quarterback contract. The Jets, after this year and a whole nother draft, like, there's a potential that this team's looking pretty good, and you might be able to attract either a veteran that gets cut or, trade for a young quarterback that's disgruntled. Like, it wouldn't shock me at all if Burrow waives his no trade clause for a team that's got like the potential of really adding some firepower this year. Or, any other quarterback, maybe Herbert becomes available or whatever. So I think there's more than one way to get your quarterback, whether that is a high draft pick or a veteran.
What do you make of the power dynamics inside the Jet organization?
Yeah, I trust Connor Hughes on that one. But I also will say, last year, it felt like the perception around the Jets was all about Aaron Glenn. This is Aaron Glenn's team. When someone needs to have a final say, it's going to be Aaron Glenn. He has full control. it did feel, and I said this, what was it, 2 months ago at the end of your press conference, where he felt a little bit more subdued after a disaster first year, 3 wins, 3 different quarterbacks, arguably the worst passing offense in NFL history. NFL record, no interceptions when you are a former cornerback is just absolutely absurd. There were a lot of things that went wrong, and you saw more subdued Aaron Glenn. There was less bravado. There was less, this is, I'm going to fix this, and I know how to fix this, and we're going to do this. Just don't let go of the rope. And you've seen kind of the flip with Darren Mougey, where people start to say, well, he's quiet, he's this, he's that. But the process in which he talks, and we delve on process a lot, but it's very important because when you're an NFL GM, when you're an NFL executive, process is so important. What is leading you to these decisions at the end of the day? And with Mougey, that process has been very strong from really the very beginning. I thought he had a good offseason last year. This year, I think he's been even better and certainly has the assets to continue to improve the roster. So the way that I see it, it's not so much that the power dynamics are in play where Darren Mougey's now in control and Aaron Glenn is on the way out because he never really trusted Aaron Glenn. I don't see it that way. What I do see it as is this is far more collaborative than maybe we even expected from last year. The fact that Mougey was involved in the coaching search, very, very important. Not because he's in control, but because Aaron Glenn is looking for help now. Aaron Glenn is looking for any assistance he can get to save his job, to get the Jets better. So the collaboration process for this organization is a lot bigger than it was last year. And I think that's also part of it, where you have Francesa comes in saying, oh, Mougey's in charge. That's never been the case. It's always been a collaborative approach, but we're seeing far more trust into what Mougey can do now than you saw last season.
Well, it was Glenn's in charge, and now it's collaborative. So that tells me Mougey has moved up in the pecking order, whether people want to say it or not.
It's trust. It's all about trust. Of all the 2 people there, whose process felt a little bit better last season? Well, clearly Mougey's. By the end of training camp, he had identified weaknesses on the roster and then tried to fill them with Jawan Braves and Harrison Phillips. The trades of Sauce Gardner and Quinn Williams, understanding where the team was and where they were going to be at the end of the year. He essentially said, I'm not waiting around to see if we can turn this around. Let's cut bait now, rebuild the way I want this team to look, and then go from there. So he's had his pulse on the roster, his pulse on the league, of where the league is heading, a lot more than I think Aaron Glenn has in this first year.
How we feeling about the state of the Jets? First wave, second wave of free agency pretty much has been solidified, and now all eyes will be on pick 2, pick 16, pick 33, and pick 44 coming up in just over 30 days from right now.
Yeah, I'm feeling surprisingly good, actually. Believe it or not. Sorry, end of the season was feeling kind of gloomy, getting rid of a lot of coaches. My whole mindset was like, Glenn is going to be a lame duck coach. Who is he really going to get in as far as coaching staff goes? And I feel like I actually am more optimistic about the assistants that he brought in than I was expecting to be. I really like linebackers coach, defensive line coach, like Reich coming in here with Musgrave and those guys. So I'm more optimistic on the coaching front. And then going into free agency, my whole mindset was, all right, don't overspend on guys that may not want to be here, or, don't pay the jet tax, if you will. And I feel like Mougey went into free agency. I mean, kicked it off with the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade, which I thought was a great move. I like the idea of extending him for a little bit, so you get him on a little bit lower average per year salary. I thought the franchise tag for Breece Hall was really good. I thought that made a lot of sense. I think there's probably a contract coming down the pipeline for him. And then from a standpoint of like the guys we brought in, we didn't overspend. Like Breece Hall is still our highest paid free agent that we extended a contract to. So I like that aspect of things. I think it gives us a lot of financial flexibility. I think it gives us a ton of flexibility in the draft. Obviously the Jermaine Johnson trade kind of, I think, tips our hand a little bit about what we're going to be doing at number 2. And then there's still obviously the glaring hole at wide receiver 2. Will they add anyone in free agency? I don't want to overspend necessarily, but that's probably going to be a major question we're going to answer on day 1 or day 2 of the draft.
It feels like they filled all the needs besides backup quarterback, which they could be patient on. They could simply wait till after the draft and say, hey, we'll just kind of evaluate, did we take Ty Simpson at 16 or not? It, to me, could be the big discussion, or did he fall to 33 and we took him there? And then to your point on receiver, I want them to add a legit veteran because I don't want them to make the mistake they made last year where they just didn't have enough. And then Garrett Wilson, unfortunately, gets hurt. And it was just glaring what they were working with in that wide receiver room.
Yeah, it's definitely a needed position. Like, you don't feel super comfortable. Mechie left in free agency. Is anyone else beyond that really viable at wide receiver? I don't really think so. If you can get someone in this third wave, or maybe I think the comp formula shakes out a little differently if you go into like just beyond the draft. So that might be an aspect they look into. You got to address it. You can't just have Garrett Wilson go down and now you're kind of left holding the bag at that point. You brought up the backup quarterback situation, and I think it's fascinating because I think it definitely has tipped our hand as to what we're doing. I think the plan was to wait till after the draft to conceal a little bit more of the quarterback mystery. I think if they were to have made a trade or sign someone that's more of a mentor type quarterback, someone like maybe Andy Dalton was one that we had discussed a lot as someone that could replicate maybe what the Giants quarterback room was last year, where you have your starter in Geno Smith, a la Russell Wilson. Then you have Jameis Winston, maybe like an Andy Dalton, kind of grooming a young quarterback that could be Ty Simpson. Now I get the feeling that maybe they're going to pivot more towards the highly volatile potential franchise guy that, someone like a Will Levis, like you don't have a whole lot of confidence in. High volatility, could be good, could, bottom out and really get you a high pick next year. And then I think that tips your hand because you wouldn't have that style backup quarterback in here if you're going to draft a quarterback high. So I get the feeling they're probably looking towards Allar or Taylor Green or Nussmeier, someone in that realm of quarterback as opposed to Simpson. Now, if Simpson falls to 33, I think they should make that selection at that point, but I don't think it's happening in round one.
Where's the team for Simpson if it's not the Jets at 16? That's what I struggle with. I don't think it's Pittsburgh. I don't think it's the Rams. I don't think it will be Miami at 11. It's either a team trading back in to the end of the first round for them to maybe get in front of the Jets at 33. Could be the Jets just doing it themselves. I suppose the Browns with their 2 first-round picks, their second one, maybe Simpson's in play for them. But I do think there's at least a better than 50-50 shot. Simpson's there at 33, and the Jets have to decide, do they want to pull the trigger or not?
Yeah, I get that sense too. I think the one team that we were kind of maybe competing with for Simpson, if you want to call it that, is Arizona. They're sitting 1 pick behind us in the second round. When I kind of look at the back end of the first, teams that could trade with either the Jets or Arizona, I'm kind of looking at San Francisco, obviously the ties to that regime in San Fran. You look at the Rams, maybe potentially in the back half, or no, they gave away their first round pick. They traded their first round pick. So that eliminates that conversation. The Jets, you trade partner feasibly would have been the Broncos with Mougey's connection there, but that pick goes to the Waddle trade. So I think both teams are probably going to sit there, and I think he goes either 33 or 34 to the Jets or Cardinals, unless the Cardinals leapfrog the Jets. I just don't know if we're going to give up assets to go into the first to get someone that we're, if we weren't going to take him at 16, I feel like you're probably not going to trade assets to go back up into the first to get him.
Brian Morales checking into our guy, Chef Brian.
Brian.
He's in the raffle for 2. He says, what's up, guys? I'd rather load up on more weapons for Geno with 16. Great to see Ryan on the show. Great dude and supported my business when I just opened.
Oh, yeah. Brian's got a really good barbecue joint right near my work. I got to stop in. I've been lazy. I've been packing food to work, but I'll stop in soon, brother.
Love it, Brian. Thanks for the support. And I do agree with him as far as pick 16. We're going to get into that. If we're kind of tiering my preferred options at 16, we already talked about the need at receiver. 16, if one of the big 3's in play, I'm all about it. I am a little weary of Jordan Tyson's injury situation, so that needs to be cleared by the Jets doctors before you could do anything. But I know there's some buzz about Omar Cooper going as high as 16 now, Mekhi Lemon falling there. I don't think Tate makes it, but he's in the conversation. What are your thoughts on a receiver at 16?
Yeah, receiver is definitely my first option. I saw an interesting tweet by U Stadium that kind of highlighted the stats against ranked opponents for the big 3 wide receivers. And there's obviously more context involved than just that. There's, matchups and, who was injured, who wasn't. And Tate kind of gets a little bit of an asterisk because he's kind of wide receiver 2 on that team. But Tyson performed the best of all the receivers against ranked opponents. But like you mentioned, the injury concern is really the big thing. And he's not going to be running in his pro day now, which is definitely concerning as well. If the medicals check out for him, I think Tyson is the best of the receivers. Lemon is probably the the one most Jet fans want to gravitate towards if I had to guess, but I think any of the three would be a good solution there. Now the big issue is like the Dolphins traded
Right.
Waddle. So now they're probably going to go receiver at the top of the draft. The Rams made a trade. They're probably going to go receiver at the top of the draft. So if you were kind of in an uneasy situation heading into 16 before those trades, you got to think there's probably less likelihood that any of the three are there at 16 this time around.
100%. It's just, it comes down to, the Jets board. If, like, let's say the big three receivers are off the board, and then we're having the conversation, do you take Omar Cooper Jr. if he's the next receiver on your board, fourth wide receiver, versus, hey, maybe you get the second offensive lineman off the board, or maybe they have a higher grade on Vega Ione from Penn State than any of the potential tackles, and it's just position versatility and position value why he fell. It's like number one lineman versus fourth best receiver. What do you value more? Are you drafting for need, or are you truly going BPA? These are all part of the conversations Mougey's having in that draft room.
Yeah, I think it's a weird balance, right? Like, I don't ideally want to spend a first on a offensive lineman. We have a lot of assets that we've kind of poured into that offensive line already, but I also don't want to reach on a position if the receivers are all comparable. Like, I do like wide receiver in the second round, honestly. I think after the top three, there might be like a little mix of guys that you kind of like, but there's a lot of receivers that are going to be taken between pick 16 and pick 44. So do you like one of those guys? Do you want to go with the offensive lineman? I get the feeling that Vega's probably going to go to Baltimore, just a few picks in front of us, which then throws maybe another wrench into it, because then are you maybe reaching more on an offensive lineman? You just signed the guy from the Raiders for a 2-year contract, so you kind of have your Band-Aid in place. You don't have to kind of reach for that, which then makes me sort of pivot back to like the weapon side of things. Like, I want to this whole draft to me, and offseason in general, is what can you do to build the most nurturing environment for a young quarterback, whether that's Geno this year or a quarterback that we drafted in the mid rounds, or setting up for 2027 draft and going high quarterback then.
I saw this graphic on Jets Reddit, and look, not the biggest fan of Reddit because they slam me in basically every comment. But while I was on there, because someone sent me the thread, I did see this post, and I'm like, you know what? Let me at least get some content out of Jets Reddit. Plan A, wide receiver, and they mentioned Lemon or Tyson. This is for pick 16 for the Jets. Plan B, interior O-line, Ione, and then Fano. Fano's a tackle, but he might be like a Will Campbell hybrid, where he might be better inside than outside. So if that's the case, he could be in play if he falls. And then plan C, I don't know if we spent a ton of time talking about this as a fan base. Plan C could very well be a defensive back. Jermod McCoy, one of the top corners, could be there. Would the Jets take another corner after the investments they've made in that position group? And then Dylan Thieneman, the safety, from Oregon. He's a name to watch that could go as high as 16. Your thoughts on plan A, plan B, plan C? Is this accurate? How do you think the Jets kind of tier their options at 16?
Yeah, this is kind of how I've been like mocking it out in my head. I'm a little flip-floppy on the back end, whether it's corner or safety. I think Thieneman could go as the first safety. I think that degenerative ACL could bump Downs a little further. Like, it wouldn't shock me if Downs winds up falling to 16, in which case he would probably be my selection.
I hope he does. I'd take him in 2 seconds, because I've heard people being like, yeah, we're not concerned about that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the gap between him and Thieneman is wildly drastic. So I could conceivably see a team, take the Oregon safety first. I would probably throw in Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon, as another potential option. I know he took Mason Taylor like top of the second round last year, but you kind of finish off your tight end room then if you have Sadiq, Taylor, and Ruckert. You're feeling pretty good about those weapons, and then you probably address wide receiver in the second round. But corner, I wasn't hoping to spend a high pick on corner this year. That's probably, I'd like to see a little bit more AZ Thomas. We invested a good amount in Stevens. It's going to be a need, whether it's this year or a first round pick next year. So if the value presents itself, I'm happy either way on it.
I'd be surprised if they took a corner, but I guess we got to be open to it if they're truly going best player available. But you invested a third round pick in a corner. You spent big money on Stevens. I know that the contract's up after a year. They can get out of it as far as the guaranteed money. You traded for Brownlee. You signed a corner from the Bears, in Deshaun Wright, who I think's got an upside and the chance to potentially start opposite Stevens. He'll compete with Azareye'h Thomas. I'd rather them honestly take the safety at 16 than another corner.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be the wise move there.
Fano, by the way, would be interesting because we've talked a lot about Ione, But Fano's a guy that could give you tackle and guard flexibility. I don't hate that at all. In fact, I think Dom C said that Fano could even play center if you needed him to.
Oh, I didn't know he played center at all. But yeah, I like the positional flexibility aspect. I think all 5 guys on the line, if they have like at least guard tackle flexibility, kind of like, Max Mitchell has, we got to see the value of it in AVT for all these years, Tittman center guard flexibility. The Vega pick would be interesting because then that puts him right next to his former left tackle in Fashanu. And then if there's any truth to the Jets sniffing around Drew Allar, then, maybe there's a comfort level in having your former offensive lineman already there. Garrett Wilson's already liking, tweets from Allar, going back to last season. So, I don't know. It's interesting to see what they could do. Fano, to me, I haven't done as much research on him just because I'm kind of not hoping that's not going to be the pick, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what they do and what direction could possibly come up here.
So I was watching the shine last night, right? And I had this thought because we have so many players coming back to this team that were on this team before. And this is crazy. This is the redemption Jets year. Like, this is the closest we're going to get to Fitzpatrick year with Geno again. There's so many parallels that where they all tie back in. But you have Reich, you have Musgrave, you have AG, you have Davis, you have Geno. You have all these players that have went somewhere else and kind of did something, and now they're coming back here, and we're hoping it's all going to come together in a good stew, a good gumbo that's delicious. But at the same time, it could be the nastiest, grossest gumbo ever. Because what Bonesy said, I love Bonesy, and I voted for Bonesy. Bonesy and Shine are very optimistic. And as Jets fans, I guess you need to have that to be delusional enough to make it through the year. But when push comes to shove, Frank Reich was absolutely horrible at the Panthers. Like, absolutely horrible. 29th offense. The worst. Like, he was really, really bad. And then he was out of
quarterback. You got to have some nuance to it, some context applied to it.
I thought he's the quarterback whisperer. I thought he can make quarterbacks better. Like, isn't that what?
Maybe not the one that he didn't want, if you believe those reports, that it was Stroud that they wanted and the owner overruled him.
Let's hope that it was Bryce that was the problem.
Do you think that Geno Smith at this stage is still better than Bryce Young as a rookie?
Yeah,
I do.
I think Geno is. Here's the thing. Last year is a very, very bad thing for Geno, but I'm hoping, because I like Geno, that Geno can come back here and give us half of what he gave us. He gave Seattle, like just half of that. If we can get half of that from him, like we can be okay. But this is a redemption team, right? And we're bad news Bears type of shit. Like, we're hoping that they could be better. But Bonesy coming on here and telling that Frank Reich is going to have a top 15 offense is asinine, and it's delusional. It is literally delusional.
It's a lot more hopium than I think Bones wants to admit. But they could be a top 20 offense. I don't think that's insane.
Maybe. We're hoping it could be a top 20
That's all this is. It's all hope. I don't think we have a head coach, so I don't think they're going to be very good. But it's all hope.
It's kind of funny because I really, really want to see Geno do good this year. I really, really want to see him do good because I like Geno.
Honestly, like I like how he's handled himself since he's been back. I think some of his interviews, he's genuine. I think he does feel like he has unfinished business here, and he does have a chip on his shoulder. It just, some of his success or failure here, it might not be in his total control.
In his hands. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, like, with AG being who AG is, it's going to be an interesting year. Better than last year. And anything is better than last year. So that's an upswing. Because normally everybody's like, I'm negative. I just state the facts. To me, Wilkes and Reich are on the same level. Like, there's no difference between them. They're both horrible now. Like, when Wilkes was okay and when Reich was good was when Belichick was good, which is eons ago. Like, he's not good anymore, and we have no proof to say he's good. We're just hoping. So let's hope that he is better.
I want to throw something out there, thinking about the draft and the Jets quarterback situation, that for 50 years we're going on, 50, not being able to find a quarterback. Okay, now we found Sam Darnold. It didn't work. For whatever reason, we have not been able to get it right. We're sitting here now in the next 2 years with 9 draft picks in the first 3 rounds between 26 and 27. that gives us an ability to build your roster. And what I think to finally find or attempt to find a quarterback. So what I mean by that is if the Jets feel Ty Simpson is the guy and want to trade into the first round to grab him, not saying it's 16, but you could argue it at 16, you have to do it. Okay. And that does not stop you now in 27 from once again taking a quarterback again.
Here's how it could though, Rooster. What if Ty Simpson's okay this year, and then you have a new coaching staff that comes in, and all of a sudden they don't know? Do they want to stick with Ty?
Okay. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm still taking a quarterback next year with one of these picks, and I'm letting them fight it out. And I know salary cap and this and that. I don't care anymore. We need to think a little outside the box. We need to find a quarterback, and if it's Ty, or if it's Ty then becomes a backup, or if Ty then is the better than the guy we take next year, Jake, what we've been doing just hasn't worked. And yet this is the why we could do it. Mougey was so great. We could still take other players. It's not like we're taking a quarterback only round one and then taking a quarterback next year. We're desperate.
What if they don't believe in Ty Simpson?
Well, I'm just saying if they love Ty Simpson, I
think they'll take him then. But I don't get the sense that they love him. I think they like him. I'd be surprised if they took him at 16. I think they like him enough to use a second-round pick on him because that's not as cost prohibitive and doesn't set you up where you have to play the guy. You could truly redshirt him if Geno's playing well or if he gets in and is okay. That doesn't stop you from being able to draft another quarterback in 2027.
I don't think Ty is getting out of the first round. So if you traded back in, like Gary said, I'm all for it. And then do it again next year. Why not? Who cares? Have two young quarterbacks in that thing, and let's see. Because we might not be able to trade up, so you might not get the one guy, but you might be able to get a great quarterback. And we're desperate. We're desperate. I think desperate times. We have an opportunity to build the roster, get two young quarterbacks the next 2 years. I think it's important. I do.
I understand the argument. You can't force the quarterback pick though, Rooster, and you're just glossing over how big of an investment the 16th pick in the draft is.
Again, you have to love Simpson. I've heard, again.
I like him, but also he's made 15 career starts. He'd be an outlier if he was really, really good.
But you know what? I'm not glossing over 16 and 33. You go through the years, you miss on these picks. If all these picks around, we great. If we don't have a quarterback, it doesn't mean anything.
I agree, but you can't just force it if Ty Simpson, you don't have strong conviction. And also, the human nature plays a part in this too. If you're Darren Mougey and you don't need to take a quarterback, unless you're in full-blown love with the guy, why would you start the clock on your potential timeline if you take Ty Simpson at 16?
Because I think you can take a quarterback again next year.
He might not. He might not. They're awful, and Ty doesn't look great. That hurts Mougey's case to be brought back.
I'm not saying you have to rush Ty this year at all.
Yeah, but then
you have Geno.
Okay, but if you don't play Ty at some point, right?
You're going to play him at some point, right?
Right, but how many games does he have to play for us to have some sort of evaluation on what he is to determine if it's still worth taking a quarterback in 2027? It's why you need probably more than 5 games to see him play well before you know if you got a guy.
I'm just saying, whatever we've done the last 50 years just hasn't worked.
Yeah, because of decisions like this. That's how you end up with guys like Christian Hackenberg in the second round.
This is different because you're still taking other players. It's not like you have one pick in the first round of each year. You're taking players, but we have to find a quarterback. We have to take chances.
No one disagrees, but you don't need to take the chance this year if you don't have
next
pure
year,
belief in the guy.
My point is, I'm not sure if this guy's going to be it or next year's. I want 2 cracks.
You don't think that next year's class is going to be better than this year's?
It is, but that guy still might not. We still might. All the guys that you draft quarterbacks, they don't always pan out.
I agreed, but
That's why I want 2. That's all I'm saying.
But you're basically saying you're willing to just light the 16th pick on fire potentially.
That's not on fire. No, listen. You have to like Simpson. If you don't like Simpson at all, forget it.
What if they like him? They don't love him.
Then no, if you don't
this
love
is my
him,
point.
no.
That's my point. You can't
take
him unless you
say they love him and they take him.
Okay, if they love him, Rooster, here's what needs to happen. They need to build everything around Ty Simpson. They need to make sure that he is in a plan where he's developed and he gets a chance to play at some point the second Geno Smith shows he doesn't have it or the Jets are 2-5.
No
because
problem.
you have to give him a chance. And I just don't know if Aaron Glenn trying to save his job is the right coach to oversee the development of Ty Simpson.
I just hate that.
You mitigate the risk at 33. He might be there at 33. I happen to think he is going to be there in the second round.
I think Mougey, I think Aaron Glenn is inconsequential. We have to build the best over the next 5 years of this. How the best way to find a quarterback. That's all I want to do is find a quarterback. And if I miss on Simpson this year, okay, I go take one next year. I'm still getting Arvell Reese. I'm still getting 2 other picks. I mean, it's not like it's 1 and 1 only. Then I would tell you, Rooster, hang up the phone. What are you, crazy? You can't do it. But I don't know. We're in a great spot to take a shot. We got to take some swings and still build. You still have picks. That's all.
I think they'll take a swing at quarterback. It just might not be at pick 16. It could be on day 2, could be on day 3.
Again, if they love, but my whole point is they love.
You
Ty
love Simpson? Do you like him? You want him at 16? Ty Simpson, like you're a believer? He's your guy?
I love Tyson. If Tyson's there from Arizona State, I'm running. But I could live with Simpson. I could take a crack, Jake.
Okay, but I could live with him as not. Yes, I
don't know enough. But I'm saying
the Jets need to have conviction the way Brian Dable had conviction in Jackson Dart that he wanted to take him at 3 and the GM wouldn't let him.
Maybe they do just because we're all screaming we don't like. Maybe they do. But my point is, if they take Simpson, you could still take a quarterback next year. That's all I'm saying. They take him at 16. You're not saying I'm done. That's it. Ty's my guy. You could still find out. You know what? I didn't love Ty as much. I'm taking a quarterback again next year.
Yeah, but what happens in typical Jet fashion? He's just okay, and now we have a huge debate like we had with Darnold versus Wilson.
He's just okay. I'm taking a quarterback, and if Ty Simpson's my backup for the next 5 years, so be it. We are desperate to find a quarterback.
You say this as if I don't know this. I understand.
But Jake,
but you can't.
But you're not going to get him if you don't draft him. You don't take chances. I don't want it limited on just one quarterback the next 2 years. I might want 2 shots at it.
But why does it have to be in the first round this year? Why can't it be in the second round this year? Or
because
they acquire a third round?
A lot better than any of the other quarterbacks. That I do think. Than Asman and all these guys. That I do think.
So if that's the case, I'm an advocate of either taking him at 33, which I think there's a chance he does actually get there.
Definitely. If he's at 33, you're running to take him 100%.
I would take him then, yes. Okay. And then I'm also open to the idea of potentially moving back into the first round just to beat the Cardinals to it if they're in on Simpson and taking him with a late first round pick.
And let me just end this with one thing. Jerry McNamara to the Qs. What a day yesterday. Let's go, babies. G-Mac to the Qs. Almost beat that dude. Bring back the great G-Mac.
Hey, here's the deal. Just got no chance unless you click on that like button. And you got to make sure you subscribe to the Jake Asman Show. You don't, you can get the f*** out. Now let's go, Asmaniacs. We're built for this shit.